Hi, and welcome back to Living the Small Business Life podcast. We're now on episode 10. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, and with me today I've got Ben, and we've also got Jo from Vision 29, who's going to be sharing her business journey and experience with us today. So let's dive straight in. Thanks for coming on board, Jo. Lovely to have you here. Let's start straight into it. So, can you tell us a little bit about your business and how you started it?
Yeah, sure. So my business is Vision 29. I started it about 10 years ago as a marketing consultancy, but it's now morphed into internal comms, employee experience and organisational culture company. And I guess really I started it back in 2013. I was in-house, I was the head of marketing for a global company. I had my young child. He was just about to go to school, and I was working full time, and I just couldn't figure out how I was going to keep my role and, kind of working full time and be able to juggle the school holidays and school runs and that sort of stuff. I didn't have the most flexible of boss at the time, and even then, it's only 10 years ago, but you couldn't really get high-end roles, global roles on a part-time basis. So I got to the point where I thought I had literally no other choice but to set up my own business, and that's what I said a lot of the time. I've got no choice, just got to do this. And so I went and spoke to a few people, got some introductions. One was at a large financial services company, one was at a large retail technology company, and managed to get into both of those really quickly, which was amazing. Wow. And they saw me through for the best part of the first few years of being in business, which was great. And then the financial services company, when I spoke to them, they were like, "We've got a role for you. It's doing internal comms." And I said, "Yeah, that's great. I don't do internal comms." And they were like, "You'll be fine. It's just doing marketing, but to an internal audience." So I was like, well, it's quite good money, so let's do this. So I did it, and that's when I started realising straight off that I really enjoyed doing the internal comms and marketing to an internal audience, because you know what you're doing and you get immediate feedback. So if you do something well, they'll tell you, and if you don't do it well, they'll also tell you. Whereas when you do marketing, it's almost a bit faceless. You do these campaigns, you look at your numbers and you see if they're doing all right, but you don't get such an immediate gratification. So I spent quite a few years kind of then building comms into my marketing. So I'd go into businesses, look at their marketing strategies, create that for them, but then also have a look at, what were their values? How does the tone of voice flow all the way through their marketing and their internal communications? And then how far do you want me to go with this before you
Well, let's go back. So what was the trigger point? So you're employed at this point, you've got a young child, you've obviously got bills, coming out every month, you've got a regular salary coming in. What was the trigger point where you thought, I'm not doing this anymore, is it because I need to spend more time with my child? Was it a monetary thing? Did you think I can earn more money running a small business? What was the trigger point where you just thought, right, this is going to be it? And how risky a decision was that for you? Because obviously being in an employed role with a company, there's security there. If you're off ill, you're getting paid, holiday pay, etc., etc. So what was the considerations you had to take in place? And what was the trigger point that you finally said, right, that's it, I'm doing it?
So I was deeply unhappy employed, and I would cry most days, like going into the office and I'd sit there crying. So I knew that wasn't sustainable. And my eldest was about to go to school, so that was also like the two together. I think for me I needed to make that change, and I didn't think about the money actually. I had savings, and it was quite, I don't think I overthought it either. It was kind of like, I'll just do this. And all the way through, so I ran that version of the business for 7 years, and I invoiced every single month from, I think I got the first role after about 6 weeks, or the first project, and I invoiced every single month thereafter for the whole 7 years. And I'm quite careful with money, let's say, so I'd always build up my pot behind me and everything. But yeah, to to take that dive, that was not a consideration. It was about happiness.
Did you have any concerns about, you know, oh my God, I've never run a business before. What's VAT bills? Do I need an accountant? How do I set all of this up? Bank accounts, etc., etc. Did you have any planning done, or did you just think, right, I'm going for it? Clearly not.
No, I didn't do much, but I did get an accountant. I spoke to a few people. So I had somebody that I'd worked with before. He was in employment, but he had a sideline business. So he gave me some advice. I got an accountant. They told me about, kind of setting up a business bank account. They told me about flat rate VAT. So even though I wasn't going to be earning enough at that point to charge VAT, what they said is I could do the flat rate VATs, which I'd get some money back. I don't even know if they do that now. And yeah, interestingly, like I registered as a company, I set up and built my own website, I set up my email addresses, I did it all properly. I was a company, and I felt that I needed that for people to take me seriously. 10 years later, I did none of that. So I'm a sole trader. I ran off my Gmail because my Vision 29 email had I don't know, I hadn't renewed something. So that was there, but not operational. So I ran off my Gmail for the first 4 months. I still haven't got a website. I'm a sole trader, so I'm not charging VAT or anything. So yeah, and I've just been so much more chilled out about it, but it hasn't had a negative impact. I've started with 2 other clients. So my first 2 clients were who they were, but now it's just 2 other clients. All have been through referral. Yeah. And yeah, it's just chugging along.
So when you started Vision 29, that was a limited business, the first company that you started, and then did you liquidate that company? Or
So I ran that for the 7 years, had my second child, and ironically, all the way through my year's maternity, I had 4 or 5 freelancers working with me by then. They kept the business going. Yeah. I took an income from it. I'd worked on it a little bit, but not excessively. I trusted them implicitly to keep the clients going. And then at the end of that year, I was just a bit like, I want to go 9 to 5 again, and I want that security of a salary. And I called up my good old first client who they'd been offering me jobs all the time, and I was like, have you got that job now? I think I'd like it. And I went in-house, and it was, on the one hand it was good because I went in-house and I got the experience as an in-house internal comms and employee engagement, kind of professional practitioner, but now in hindsight I'm like, my business was probably at a point where it would, it was going to upscale. Yeah. And I don't know if I got cold feet or if I felt too tired or whatever, and I jumped away from it. And now, I think if I'd have just stuck with it, I probably would have, leveled up then at that point. But the flip side is I got the in-house experience. I spent 2 or 3, 4 years in-house over COVID, and then I've then come back out fully in comms, engagement and culture. So maybe it's a journey that I was meant to take in getting that experience.
What were the differences between running a limited company and then going sole trader? Why did you set up as a sole trader the second time round? And what are the benefits to you for that as well?
So again, talked to my accountant, different accountant, but asked, that exact same question. And she just said, right now, because of, I guess I'm still less than a year into my business, you can earn, I can't remember what the figure is, but you can earn up to a certain amount before you really need to be registered. And there's not much difference really, apart from kind of you have to pay obviously to register with Companies House, and I guess you have to record your accounts differently. You can do exactly the same and operate exactly the same as a sole trader. So it just seemed as though it wasn't such a big deal now. Maybe the type of clients I'm working with. So if I'm working with the large corporates, I might need to be registered in order to get through their onboarding, but they're not my target client anyway, so I'm not too worried about that right now.
You don't employ people either, do you?
No.
I suppose you use freelancers through your network, so no, that makes sense. Can you walk us through a typical day in the life of running your business? Do you have a lot of structure to your days, or is it
quite varied?
Podcast.
Well, it does vary. There isn't really a typical day. Again, I've got my second child now. He's just in primary school, so you know, a lot of it is around giving me that flexibility to be able to do him.
School runs.
Yeah, and that sort of stuff. Although, what also has changed is my husband works from home full time. So he's employed, but he works from home full time. Got to be careful what I say here. He does work very, very hard. But because he's around and he does have that flexibility, I find that whereas first time around, all of the school responsibilities were on me and I was juggling that with my business. This time around, because the husband's there, I have a lot more freedom to go and do work. So I'm not always there on the school runs, whereas before I always would have been. But yeah, we get up, do school run, try not to start work till 9:30. So I try and do a walk or a run or, you know, just something. And then, yeah, like kind of properly get into it about 9:30.
Is that without looking at any emails up until that point?
Well, I've got a little bit of an addiction to LinkedIn. So not emails,
Okay.
but LinkedIn is like, you know, as soon as you're up and looking at your phone on that. So I have to keep that in its
That's not
box.
the first thing you do, surely. You don't wake up and grab the phone.
No,
I've
no,
got
'cause
LinkedIn
I
notifications.
don't take the phone to bed with me anymore. But yeah, like I do look at it quite early, cup of tea and then look at it. But then, it just depends. Like I can be on site with clients. I'm in London a lot more this time around. So before, my whole stomping ground was Milton Keynes. So I'd be going to networking events, and my clients would be based in Milton Keynes. I'd be on site with clients a lot more. Whereas now, you know, it's a lot more distance. But if I am on site, I'm there, you know, kind of running workshops, or, you know, doing filming or, you know, whatever. So it's quite different. It's much more active, I guess, when I'm with clients. I love networking. I love meeting people face to face. So I'm always doing podcasts or going to networking events or speaking at conferences or, you know, whatever. They're either virtual or face to face, but I love all of that.
Did you start the networking events when you first started? Was that one of the main things you did for lead generation?
Yeah.
And how have you
I
found
hate
those?
them.
Because I hate them.
Yeah, well, I hated them then. So I remember the first one I ever went to was Business Live. It was in like a nightclub or something. It was just so weird, and we were all sat at tables and we all had to do a 60-second pitch, and it was awful. And a lot of them in Milton Keynes can be they'd be quite cliquey. So you'd have your business, your breakfast ones, which was all the suits, the men in suits. So you didn't really fit in there. And there'd be other ones where you've got all your, you know, kind of your service providers like your plumbers or whatever, and
Your IT companies, your telco companies.
But then they, you know, kind of, and networking isn't about getting direct business. But I would look at the people in the room and think, I can't even see really where you're going to refer me that much, or where I'm going to refer you, you know. So I'd never found my tribe or my group where I really fitted in. This time around, it's been really different. So I do some networking in Milton Keynes, but not much. I'm in London a lot, and that's where I do a lot of networking. And I network within my industry. So, you know, there's lots of things for HR and comms people.
Yeah.
And I've set up my own one in Milton Keynes. So I was like, there's nothing that fits me, so I'm going to do my own. So I have just done that, and I've got one next week actually. And yeah, it's just a little, you know, nothing grand, but all in-house internal communicators and, you know, kind of consultants all coming together and supporting each other.
You found networking events that are more industry set, i.e. your own industry, have been more beneficial to you than going to potential client that you're going to potentially get a referral from?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. Because a lot of the time, like, obviously, in the industry, you'd get the referrals anyway. So from other consultants or other service providers, or the in-house people. If you build those networks with the in-house people, then they'll bring you in anyway.
Yeah.
And I think with internal comms, like often you've got a really small team in-house, or more often than not, it's one person. And having been in-house, this is where it serves me, I know it's really lonely, it's really isolating, and like you can almost get just really insular in your company. So even when I was in-house and I'd go to conferences and so on, like to connect with all these other people, you've all got the same problems. How to do diversity inclusion, how to do hybrid working, you know, like how to communicate your strategies so that it beds in. Every internal communicator has those problems. So when you come together as a community, you really support each other. And, you know, like, somebody will say, I've got this problem, and every single person will say, I had that last year, this is what I did, this is how I did it, take it, go and do it, be successful in your business.
Yeah.
Whereas in marketing, everyone will be like, I had a really successful marketing campaign, but I'm not telling you what it is because you're going to go and do it better than me, you know. So it's very, very different, like, cultures and ways of working, which is good.
Sorry, are you competing with those other people for business, or do you find it's more of a collaborative and sharing knowledge with your peers?
Yeah, we do compete, obviously, but it's quite weird because we also really support each other as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things have changed, like with LinkedIn in particular. You know, you kind of all follow each other, or, you know, the consultants like myself, you all follow each other, you all, you know, commenting on each other's posts, and you all provide that kind of support to each other, even though you know ultimately you're competing with each other as well. But, you know, I guess that's the community. I don't know if that's in all industries, or whether that's what LinkedIn now creates, is this kind of sense of community and competition at the same time.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn for me has just become, I don't know, it's become more a Facebook.
Right,
It's not,
okay.
you know, LinkedIn, let's go back 15, 20 years ago, you were connecting with potential clients, you were connecting with, you know, my group, or my connections list was very small back then, and it was just, you were connecting people with people that you potentially have done business with, or were going to do business with, or have done it in the past, or colleagues. Now it just seems like a free-for-all. I think every time I log in, there's like 400 notifications. You know, someone's commented on this post and someone's commented on that post. And it's like, I think the whole ethos of LinkedIn, which is connecting business people and ideas, is completely gone, because it just seems like a bragging site to me now. A lot of people saying, look how great I've done, you know, oh, I've just run a marathon, and I don't care whether you've run a marathon. Like, I really don't. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, seriously. I don't. If I wanted to know whether that person had run a marathon successfully, I'd probably connect with them on Facebook, not on LinkedIn. I want to hear about... No one ever goes on there. There are a few I've noticed recently, in actual fact, about people not being able to get jobs. Right, that's probably one of the things I have noticed quite a lot over the last few months, where people have put looking for jobs, out of work, referring people on. But I've never heard any company go on there saying, do you know what, we made a really bad call, we did a really bad piece of work with this customer, unfortunately it hasn't worked out for us, but we did this to fix it, or we've done that. It's all, look how great we are, look at this going in, look at this.
See, I think all of our LinkedIn feeds are personal to us, obviously, because of who we're connected to, how we manage our notifications. Maybe we'll have a little chat about that afterwards.
Maybe,
we can cut those back for you. But also who you follow as well. So, like, I think you can curate your own feed to whatever you want it to be. So in comms, right, it's a bit of an echo chamber, so you all follow the same people, everyone says the same things, and it can become quite, you know, like, just whereas I've started thinking, I need to be connected to them, but they're not my target market, so I spend ages going through and connecting with the people that are my target market. And then, you know, following them and tapping into them. There's loads of lurkers, aren't there? So the people that are my target audience, they don't post, but they're on there all the time. So whilst I'm posting and I'm talking about the challenges and how to overcome those problems and that sort of stuff, I'm building up my reputation with them. They're like, like that. And then eventually I'm putting in there, by the way, I provide these services. Like, if you need somebody to come and do your listening workshops, I do those. Then, you know, I'm top of mind when that opportunity does come in. And I've had two leads directly from LinkedIn. One didn't go anywhere, but the other one has turned into one of my biggest clients.
It's the education piece, isn't it? It's not about... I think there's a lot of direct sales starting to happen on LinkedIn. It's almost like connect with somebody straight away, you'll file a message, and I get a lot of that, and I think you probably do as well. But I think if you're connecting with people and sharing content, and, you know, you're becoming visible, then when they do have that, for us, an IT problem, they think, I've seen this guy post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, and then you get something coming that way.
And you've got to be authentic. That's the biggest thing. And you've got to put a lot of varied posts on. So I wouldn't do business posts such, but like it's about what's your problem, how can I solve it with you, and doing that in an authentic way. And then also a bit of your personality should come in as well. So a few of those kind of, personal messages are good as well, because that's when people get that feeling of you in your entirety and they start buying into you.
So Joe, you do internal comms now for a business. In terms of communicating out to their staff, do you find, and it's quite interesting that you do this for businesses, do you find that some of the things that you're communicating out are off the back of negative things that are happening within the business that you're trying to combat through a form of communication, or is it things that the business is putting out in a positive manner to just increase productivity through staff, or what are the general subjects that you're communicating out around?
So it can be anything. I try to avoid the companies where they're that bad that they're kind of like combating the negativity to start, kind of that they're trying to set right. So as an internal communicator, I think really your main reason for being in the business is to communicate and embed like the organisational strategy, the direction of the business, and align everybody with that, so they all know what their role is and they all know what they're doing. That's a bit boring. So then what I found is that, kind of where I really enjoy spending time is that whole employee experience and the engagement. And that's where you start talking about, like what are your values, what it's like to work here, what's the culture, what's the feeling. And if you get people kind of a bit more emotionally connected to the business, and if we tap into all of that, then we communicate the strategy, we all got to know where we're going, but people then, kind of, you get the best out of people in that way. So for me, I've kind of almost moved on a bit more from the comms. That underpins it anyway, but it's the feeling, the culture, that, getting the best out of people that I absolutely love doing.
And are you communicating out, is that communication going to all levels of staff? Or is this trying to embed the culture in the senior leadership team that then is filtering down into the business?
So it varies. It has to start, it has to be role modelled from the leaders, but it has to be like something that comes from everybody. Yeah. So my whole proposition is about employee listening. So whatever it is that, kind of for me, we've got this bunch of employees in a business. They've got a lot of knowledge. They've got a voice. They've got experience. They've got loads of insights. So let's harness some of that. Let's do employee listening. Do some workshops. Do surveys or whatever. Draw that out and then use that as some of the kind of the insights that then goes into feeding whatever it is, like what is our culture, or what should our future strategy be, or whatever the problem is, how do we make ourselves more of a diverse and inclusive company, or how do we successfully embed hybrid working in our business. All of that the employees have got to have a stake in. They've got to have a voice. We've got to listen to them. Doesn't mean they get everything that they want, but it means that they've contributed to it. And then whatever we're doing, we can do it saying, you've told us this is why we're doing it. And then you launch it, you iterate, you get people to speak again, and they're fully invested then. And I just think a lot of companies don't do that. The leaders have got to tell the children what to do. This is how we're doing it, and then they just become disengaged, and off they trot to another company that's where they feel more valued.
Sure.
Absolutely. I get that. And I've seen elements of that done in larger organisations that I've worked in previously, but they've not followed through with it either. No. So it's like a survey comes out and you fill it out because you I want to put my point across here, and then you never hear anything again. Nothing changes, and then it almost has a negative impact that I've had this opportunity to voice my concerns, and then nothing's come from it. So you would take that data and actually then look at how you can improve things and follow through with it.
And usually what happens in that instance is the company, or they've surveyed everyone, the findings have said blah, and the leader's been like, well, I don't agree with that, or I don't want to do that. So they kind of almost brush it under the carpet because they don't want to make the change. So that's where working with the leaders is so important. And I just did, just in the process of doing like a whole culture program with a company who I did their marketing for in 2015, amazingly. And like I did all the listening, and then I said to them, I was like, how up for this are you? because you've got to do a load of self-reflection. You've got to change. You've got to role model the behaviour, but then we'll get the best out of it. And I think without having those conversations and without the leaders really throwing themselves into it, it won't be successful. And yeah, that's called, like, people call it survey fatigue, but it's actually like inaction fatigue. So then next time around they do the survey and they're like, well, what's the point, because nothing happens and nothing changes. But done really well, it can be really, really effective.
That's good. How do you sort of win and attract new customers then? I mean, I know you've mentioned LinkedIn and networking, but where's sort of your last few clients come from? Is it, you mentioned referrals as well. Are you putting yourself out there in, are you doing any email marketing, anything like that? No? Right, okay, so it's all word of mouth pretty much.
You're good at the job. I'm running the business.
No, so I've not got a website. I've not got, haven't got a LinkedIn newsletter, which everyone has. Like, there's only a certain amount of newsletters that you can read in a day. And then, I think the thing now is that every consultant has an email newsletter. It's either weekly or monthly, so I'm not doing that because I just, it takes a lot of time to produce this stuff. And I just think people are almost overloaded with too much content. We're like this content hungry, kind of society now where we're listening to podcasts or watching them or, reading newsletters and watching webinars. And, I just think it's too much. So for me, it's about this is so me, networking, building relationships, kind of connecting the dots. I put people in or refer people and that happens. And, for now, that's working for me. Maybe I need to grow up the business at some point, but for now it's working.
I think you're right though, because when you think about, newsletters and, webinars and so on and so forth about particular subjects, I think you can go on pretty much anything on YouTube and type in a subject and pull the desired video around the content that you want that's either 8 years old, 4 years old, 1 year old or 6 days old, and that content so readily available. I think now you're quite right. I'd like to know what the statistics are of newsletters that are posted out on LinkedIn that actually get read longer than a minute.
Exactly.
I think it'll be shocking. I think there'll be hardly any, because I don't think people read that content. I think they flash read. It's like TikTok, isn't it? Scrolling through. If something really catches you, you'll read it or watch it to the end. If it doesn't, you just off, next.
People don't have the attention
it has
span.
changed loads from like before. When I set up, I had my website, did a couple of blogs a month. It was much slower, whereas now it's like this instant, like you say, we expect all the information instant. So I'm just not prepared to do that to myself right now.
Do you have capacity to take on additional work? So you've got a couple of clients that you're working with at the moment. Is there bandwidth there available if something else was to come along, or have you got to finish off projects and things before you can take on more work?
So when I set up this time around, I absolutely said I don't want to do this on my own. So for me, it's about like taking on the projects and having my network of freelancers where I'd got to before, I guess, to be able to, kind of bring them in to work on projects so that we can ultimately, like, I love the thrill of the networking and bringing the business in and scoping that out and almost getting it set up, but I don't really enjoy sticking around and doing all the delivery. So ultimately it'd be nice to have people that I can trust that can do the longer term delivery, because I'm doing culture change. These are long projects, like 12, 18, 24 months or so. It's about that relationships with the clients. So I need to have people that I can rely on, that I can bring in to keep those projects going and deliver whilst I'm off, having lunches and nice dinners and getting the next bit of business in.
What's the sort of biggest challenge that you faced, either in when you first set up or when you came back to it, and sort of how did you overcome that challenge?
I think now it's always having that self-confidence and just backing myself all of the time. I don't know if it's an age thing, but kind of I can doubt myself a lot more. That that kind of voice in my head can come and be like, you can't do this, or like, who do you think you are? And I just have to, either let it have its say and then put it back in its box, or just constantly remind myself a lot more that I am worthy and capable and, kind of that sort of stuff. But I'm always pushing myself outside of my comfort zone as well. So I saw somebody speaking at an event last year, and I was listening to what she said, and I was like, I could say all of that. You know, like, my story's no different to yours. Everything you're talking about, that everyone's hanging off every word, I could say that. I know all of that. So then I was like, well, I need to be there then, don't I? So off I went and applied to speak at loads of events, and I spoke at a few events, and it's my worst fear, speaking in front of hundreds of people. I remember I was in the ladies, like, looking at myself in the mirror going, what the fuck are you doing? I'm allowed to swear. What the fluff are you doing? like, who do you think you are? And I went out and did it and loved it, and, you know, so it's that sort of stuff, like, you know, and I guess, you know, working for yourself, no one else is going to do this. You've got to do it all.
How did you overcome that fear? If it was that bad and you're in the toilet looking at yourself in the mirror thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? How did you overcome it? Because there are some big names of people that have been on stage. You know, I think BMW's CEO had a complete failure. One of those film directors, when he was doing something for LG TVs, he had a complete meltdown, brain
President
fart.
Biden recently, wasn't it?
Well, President Biden had a brain fart in his election video. So yeah, how did you overcome that? Did you just sort of look in the audience and look at one solitary little child in the back and just imagine the whole room was gone and it was just a kid sat there? Or
So I did, years and years and years ago, I worked with a guy, and he was amazing, like, and so comfortable with public speaking, and we coincidentally kind of got back in touch with each other recently. So I called him up and I was like, can you give me a little bit of coaching? So we had a couple of hours, and he took me through his methodology, so I had that in my mind, and now I just kept saying to myself, I know this is a topic that I'm really comfortable with, like, you know, I can do it. And I did. In fact, it was quite funny because it was a panel, so I wasn't stood up like presenting solely for 50 minutes. It was a panel, and I'd met two of the panellists and the moderator. Hadn't met one of them because he hadn't shown up to any of the pre-planning sessions. And he rocked up, and he was we were women. And by the way, I never have an issue with men and women and all that stuff. Like, it never bothers me. But we were women. He was a man, and he came and sat down, and he was quite big and quite overpowering. And the things he was saying, I just didn't agree with. So we had the mic, me and him were sat next to each other, and we were fighting over, and he'd say something, I'd be like, can I take the mic, please? And it was almost like we were having, like, very respectfully, but we had such different views that we were like, well, I don't really agree with that, and I don't agree with that. So it was, I don't know, I think it's quite an interesting thing. And then at the very end, we did agree on one thing, and that I was like, you know, actually, I agree with you on that, and everyone just chuckled. So I think it was quite an interesting performance in the end, but I really enjoyed it. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Anything that you're really scared of doing, it gives you that adrenaline rush, and then you buzz from it, and then you're like, yeah, I can do this again.
And that's where growth comes from as well, doesn't it? You know, stepping into the unknown a little bit. And I think there's that imposter syndrome thing where you think, oh, I shouldn't really be here, but you know, you get on and do it, and then you reap the rewards afterwards as well. And then you only grow your confidence off the back of that, and then you do it again and again and again.
And I think, like, you know, running your own business, you should do the things that bring you joy. So rather than me sitting there thinking, oh, I've got to create a whole website, it's not where I want to be right now. But going out and being with people and, you know, presenting and doing that sort of stuff, that's where I'm really buzzing and thriving. So, yeah, why do the things that aren't bringing you joy when you can be just as successful in a different way, I think.
Yeah.
So I've got one last question for you, which was something you mentioned earlier about when you first started doing networking, you walked in and it was men in suits.
Yeah.
Did you find it a struggle as a woman starting a business, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
10 years ago? And what's the difference between then and now?
Oh, it's a great question, isn't it? So I did find it I didn't find it a struggle starting my business and getting my business. That was great. But that environment, like, I felt, I'm short, quite little, petite, and there was, these big men, like, all in suits, and I just don't think they took me seriously. But I didn't, you know, whereas some people might get a bit uppity about that. I just knew it wasn't my place to be, and, you know, kind of moved on from that. And that's probably the one environment where, you know, kind of I really felt it. Now it seems so different. People are so much more relaxed, and I think, you know, there's a lot more
got a baseball cap on, so
Exactly.
it's definitely more
See,
relaxed.
right.
There's a reason.
And there's a lot more freelancers and, you know, just a lot more small business owners that now, I think, than there was then. Like, funnily enough, so my son is doing work experience this week, as you know, but he's doing it with a freelancer. And I've been thinking all week about when I did my work experience, it was a long time ago, you wouldn't have done that, right? You wouldn't have gone even to a small
100%.
business. You'd have gone to a factory or to an office
corporate,
environment. Yeah. And, you know, that would be your work experience. Whereas now it's absolutely fine. And he's getting what he really needs from doing that with a freelancer, which I think is really good. And I think that shows where we are as, you know, kind of in business nowadays.
And more interestingly, the two subjects that he's chosen didn't exist 10 years ago,
No,
either, really.
very true. No, yeah, it's very true.
How do you continue to stay motivated?
Oh,
You
God,
know,
another
especially when
great
it's hard
question.
work. You know, there's obviously probably ups and downs. You know, it's never linear going that way, is it? Business. You know, so when you have had some tough times, you know, keep pushing and striving forward.
I think I'm a bit of a workaholic though. Like, you know, even when I was at school, my mum told my teacher off because I was getting too much homework. And the teacher said, well, we give her 3 and she chooses 1 from the 3, but she does all 3. So I think that's in me, right? I'm really driven, you know, like really motivated. This is me, it's my personal brand. I'm doing what I love doing. So it's not hard to find the motivation, I don't think. In fact, I need to do the opposite. I need to find the off button and separate the two and make sure that I still have that balance and I'm not all just work and that, you know, I'm doing this for family and freedom and flexibility.
Yeah,
And
don't lose sight
do
of
that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next, with sort of work-life balance. So how do you sort of maintain that and put things in place to make sure you are spending time with your family and you're not just go all the time?
Yeah.
Well, Jake's here for a start behind the camera.
It is hard.
Yeah.
So I had burnout a few years ago, and it was through COVID, working, you know, in crisis mode. But because of that, I have to always be really conscious of that fine line between tipping over into like being in an unhealthy kind of place. So sleep is really important to me. That's why I don't take my phone to bed anymore, because I just couldn't sleep after scrolling endlessly on TikTok or whatever. Eating well, I have to really consciously make sure I eat. Didn't have breakfast this morning, so bad on me. But yeah, really, really conscious about that. Exercise, getting out in, you know, kind of the fresh air and so on. All of those are real conscious things that I have to put into place. And yeah, just making sure that I do make time, log off early, no more working in the evenings. Just all this structure that I've had to put in to help me keep that balance.
And when you said you hit burnout, describe that? What was burnout to you?
God. So it was slow and painful. That's what it was. You know, working really hard on the job in that crisis time and just having it creep up. And it for me, it was more mental to start with. So when you've got something that's mental, like, you know, mental ill health, it's really hard. Like with you, when you broke your foot, you knew you'd broken your foot, right? Whereas when it's mental illness, you can almost play games with yourself, you know, be in denial, not recognise it. But then it started showing itself in me physically. So I just was grey. I was very bloated, where I was internalising all of my stress. Not sleeping well, not good. And it was just one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, who is that? You know, that is not Joe. But then admitting it, I didn't even know what burnout was. I had to do research, and then figuring it out, like, is that me? No, it can't be. No, I'm not that weak, you know, all that stuff. And then eventually I had to get signed off for I think I was off for 3 months. Yeah, it was horrible. And
You signed off with stress then, basically.
Yeah. And the company that I was with at the time, they were good and understanding to a degree. I think they could be better. And I think this is, you know, as a bit of a sideline, I talk about it. I think we need to educate companies so much more on it. Preventing it isn't just about recognising it and then letting people go on sick leave and, you know, giving them the EAP number for them to get some support. It's about looking deeply. What are those behaviours in that business that are the real causes of burnout? Because it's having no psychological safety, it's not having realistic goals and objectives. It's about, you know, kind of leaders not role modelling the right behaviours and that sort of stuff. And I guess that's where it ties in so well to what I do.
It's also what people are doing outside of work as well. You know, burning the candle at both ends, not say taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, you could be doing a lot of stuff outside of work, which then means you don't show up for work properly as well.
Very true.
Or if you're really busy in work and then you're really busy outside of work, then that's
Yeah.
like a recipe for disaster, isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, where you just don't take your foot off the pedal ever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've been there myself
Have
as
you?
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, just constantly busy all the time, constantly working or constantly doing something, never just sitting down, chilling out,
Yeah.
you know, relaxing. So, yeah, no, I completely get that. Yeah, so how do you unwind after a hectic day of work? You know, do you have any sort of hobbies, interests, things that you participate in to have a bit of you time, me time?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? You know, we've got a family, 2 kids, they've got needs and they need to be run around here, there and everywhere. So at the end of the day, it's quite hard. So, you know, dinners, and I think I'll finally flake on the sofa about 9 o'clock and go, But I love running. So in the mornings, I try and go for a nice run, set my day up properly. And, you know, if I can't do a run, then a walk, just something to kind of clear my head and set me up. I love socialising, surprise, surprise, networking, but in a different way. But just being with, you know, the friends and family, and our family time is really important. So yeah, a bit of a simple life really, but keeps me happy.
Always makes me smile when someone says they're into running.
I was just sat here thinking, he's going to be smiling. Thinking,
I saw your little
yeah, another runner. I'm a big into running myself.
Yeah, I can see that. No, that's brilliant. What's the one thing you'd wish you'd have known before you started a business? And if you'd start again, what would you say to your younger self?
I think really, like, I haven't got a plan, which is so ironic because that's what I go and do for businesses. But yeah, I think maybe just having some sort of a plan about, and getting some outside, I guess, inspiration or whatever about, you know, how kind of companies can scale and grow. I think, you know, maybe having some sort of plan might be good, but I can do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's still early days on this venture, so yeah, I think that's probably the best thing. But other than that, I mean, it's been pretty plain sailing, really. The clients have come in, the work has been good. I've got great relationships ongoing, you know, with the clients I've worked with before. Paid the bills, so yeah, it's not too bad.
Okay, final question just to finish. If your business had a theme tune, what would it be and why?
Oh, I don't know. What's come to my mind is like the theme tune from Wonder Woman or something like that. Because right now I feel like I just have to be able to do everything. Do you know what I mean? Imagine myself just spinning around and yeah. But you know, you have to pull it out of the bag. Whatever you've got to do to get your business, you know, going forwards, you've got to do it. So.
Wonder Woman, that's a good one. I like
Your
that.
sword and your shield.
Yeah.
And a little crown.
Yeah. Well, no, Joe, thanks very much for joining us today.
Appreciate
It
that.
was really good to have you on the podcast and just discuss what you do, find out a bit more about you. I know we touched on things like work-life balance and, you know, just understand your journey as well. It's been really great to have you on, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us on the Living the Small Business Life podcast. Please like, share and subscribe.